Hello, anatomy students. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about hormonal regulation of blood pressure, and this is for two reasons. Um, First of all, we're talking about hormones now in our endocrine unit, and this is one very complex way in which hormones are interacting with each other in order to maintain homeostasis within our bodies. Um, but there are some other things about this system that are really quite relevant to what is happening with the spread of SARS-CoV-2 and the disease that it causes, COVID-19, today. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of these slides with you, and then I'm going to leave you to go and check out um, an activity that I have posted for you in Cami that investigates a little bit of the research that is happening to determine the pathogenesis of COVID-19. Um, so I put this disclaimer in the activity, but I just want to say here that remember, this is ongoing research. It's not written in stone. I'm not going to say it's speculation because the articles that I took the information from is from the New England Journal of Medicine, and which I think is a very credible source. But again, we're just kind of waiting on more information and more data before um, things can finally be settled about how this disease is even spreading. So anyway, let's talk for now about hormonal regulation of blood pressure. So these are the things that I'll talk about in this little presentation. I'm going to list some of the major hormones that play a role in the regulation of blood pressure, describe where they're synthesized, explain how the secretion of these hormones is controlled, and then also detail how these hormones work together to facilitate the homeostasis of blood pressure in the body. Um, all right, so we've got lots of hormones from different structures in our body that are going to regulate blood pressure. And here we have the kidneys, the liver. We also have our adrenal glands. There's also some hormones in the heart and hormones that are coming from the pituitary gland that are going to play a role as well. I'm not going to talk too much, maybe not even at all, depending on our time, about what's going on with the heart and with the brain, but for sure, these first three. Um, so the hormone from the kidneys that I'll be mentioning is called renin. And I've got angiotensinogen, which is coming from our liver. We have aldosterone from our kidneys. From the heart, it's called atrial natriuretic peptide and antidiuretic hormone, which is coming from the posterior pituitary gland. What we're going to be focusing on today, though, is the RAAS, which is called the renin angiotensinogen aldosterone system, RAAS. As we talk about blood pressure regulation, let me move myself out of the way. One thing that you need to remember is that where sodium goes, water will follow. Um, and so if sodium is being put back into the blood or reabsorbed into the blood from the kidneys while the kidneys are filtering our blood, then that means that water is going to follow it as well. Um, and when water gets into our blood vessels, our blood volume goes up, and that's going to increase our blood pressure. Um, Increases in blood pressure are going to stimulate releases of other hormones. So remember that water follows sodium. All right, so when the blood pressure is low, then the kidneys are going to secrete renin. And this is coming from an area of the kidney called the nephron, and more specifically, the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule. So you see, the kidney is made up of series of these tubes called tubules, and the tubules are going to filter the blood as it comes through the capillaries. It kind of goes through the capillaries into this little knot of blood vessels, and then it leaves. But while the blood is being pumped through these tiny, tiny little blood vessels, you have filtrate that's being made, and it's the filtrate that's going to form the urine that will be excreted here, where it says urine out. Um, but anyway, there are certain cells that are found in this area that are responsible for secreting some of these hormones. Um, and so here we can see like a blown up version of what's called the renal corpuscle. So the glomerulus is this little knot of capillaries, and then we have these cells that form a Bowman's capsule around it. There are some tiny cells that, well, I guess all cells are tiny, but there are some cells that are here lining the entrance of the capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. These are called the granular juxtaglomerular cells, and these are the cells that are secreting the renin. And so when the pressure of the blood entering into our glomerulus drops, that's the signal for these cells to secrete renin. Um, Sympathetic nerves, a drop in blood pressure is going to cause this. A decrease in blood sodium, which will be sensed by another group of cells here near the glomerulus as well. The target is a chemical called angiotensinogen, and angiotensinogen is the precursor for another um, molecule called angiotensin 1. So we're going to get into all of that on the next slides. Okay, so when the blood pressure goes down, that's going to stimulate the glomerular cells that I just mentioned on the last slide to secrete renin. And so renin is going to enter into the blood. So the trigger here is a decrease in blood pressure. That could be because somebody is bleeding out, and so they're losing a certain volume of their blood, or it could be that they're dehydrated. So there are a number of factors that can cause a decrease in blood pressure. So what happens then is the renin enters into the bloodstream, and that's going to convert angiotensinogen, which is secreted by the liver, to form angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 is going to enter the bloodstream, and the lungs are going to contribute angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE. That's ACE, which is what you have over here on the side. The ACE is going to convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is going to stimulate vasoconstriction. So that means that it's going to cause a narrowing of these blood vessels all over the body. And when you narrow the container, but you keep the volume of fluid the same on the inside, you're increasing the pressure of that fluid on the walls of those vessels. So angiotensin 2 is going to increase our blood pressure for us. And so that's what's going on there. Now, aldosterone is another hormone that's going to be released when angiotensin 2 is found in the blood. So angiotensin 2 will stimulate our adrenal glands to release Aldosterone. Now, aldosterone is a hormone that's called a mineral corticoid. It's made in the adrenal cortex, and then here you can see exactly where in the adrenal cortex it's made. And aldosterone is going to be released again when stimulated by renin. It's going to be triggered by a decrease in blood sodium. So remember that water follows sodium. So if you have low amounts of sodium in the blood, that means that you have lower amounts of water in the blood, and so the blood volume is lower as well. Aldosterone is going to target the nephron or the tubules that I mentioned that are found in the kidney that filter the blood and create the urine to be excreted from the body. And the action of aldosterone is to increase the blood pressure, and it's going to do this by causing the tubules to reabsorb sodium, to bring sodium back into the blood. And remember, water follows sodium. So if sodium is coming back into the blood, then water is too. And that's going to increase the blood volume and increase the blood pressure. And so here's the rest of our picture. So we left off here with angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is going to cause vasoconstriction of the blood vessels, which will increase the blood pressure, but it is also going to stimulate our adrenal glands to release aldosterone. Aldosterone enters the blood. It's going to stimulate the tubules that are found inside of the kidney to reabsorb sodium and thus water, and that increases blood pressure by increasing the blood volume. So there's a couple of other hormones that I will mention here. If you wanted to stop the video here and just move on to the worksheet, then that's fine as well. But for those of you that would like to listen, feel free to stick around. There's another hormone that's going to help to increase blood pressure, and that's ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, also known as vasopressin. And it's produced in the hypothalamus. It's produced in part by the paraventricular nucleus, but it's also synthesized by the neurons that are found in the supraoptic nucleus as well. And then it's going to be stored inside of the posterior pituitary until it's time to be released. Let me move myself around here. So when blood pressure goes down, there are baroreceptors or pressure receptors that are found in the aorta and in the carotid sinus, which is here near the neck. And when those receptors sense a drop in blood pressure, then that's going to stimulate the release of ADH from the posterior pituitary gland. And so the target of ADH is, again, the tubules that are found inside of the kidney. And so ADH is going to cause these tubules to reabsorb water, to bring water back into the blood, which increases blood volume and increases blood pressure. There's a hormone that is synthesized by the cells that are found in the atria of the heart, which are the two upper chambers of the heart. This is going to act as an antagonist to renin and aldosterone and ADH, and it's going to lower the blood pressure. So you see, when you increase the blood pressure, you are causing the tissue of the heart to stretch, and that's going to stimulate the release of this hormone, and that is going to cause sodium. It's called atrial natriuretic hormone. It's going to cause sodium to be excreted in the urine. And remember, water follows sodium. So if sodium is being put back into the urine, so is water. So it's going to decrease the volume of the blood by causing the kidneys to release sodium and thus water. And then I'm not going to talk too much about this because it looks like we're running out of time. So anyway, I'm going to stop here and you can change now to do the worksheet. Thanks for listening.